Charles Hamilton stares at the legal documents on his mahogany desk, his hands trembling slightly. The acquisition papers are official, signed, and final. The empire he built over 30 years now belongs to someone else. The new owner's name is typed in black ink at the bottom. Elizabeth Parker. The name hits him like a physical blow. He remembers that name. He remembers a skinny 12-year-old girl with tangled hair and a voice that shook when she sang. He remembers the way the studio audience laughed when he made his jokes about her clothes, her shoes, her dreams. He remembers the way she ran off stage crying. That was 1987. She was just a kid from the wrong side of town, auditioning for his talent show with nothing but hope and a song her mother used to sing. He destroyed her on live television for the sake of ratings. Now, Elizabeth Parker owns everything he's ever worked for. The intercom buzzes. His secretary's voice sounds different, careful. "Mr. Hamilton, Miss Parker is here for the transition meeting?" Charles closes his eyes and tries to remember how to breathe. If stories of second chances move you, please subscribe and share your thoughts below. Sometimes the past finds a way to balance the scales. Charles Hamilton owns the biggest television network in the state. At 65, he's worth $40 million and has the power to make or break careers with a single phone call. His shows reach millions of homes every night. His opinion matters. His approval can launch dreams. But success has made him cruel. For 30 years, Charles has hosted America's Next Star, the talent show that turned ordinary people into household names. He's discovered singers, dancers, comedians, and actors. He's also destroyed just as many dreams, often for no better reason than entertainment value. The audience loves his sharp tongue. They tune in every week, hoping to see him tear apart some hopeful amateur. Charles has built his fortune on other people's humiliation, and he's never lost sleep over it. He lives alone in a mansion overlooking the city. No wife, no children, no close friends. Just success, money, and the kind of power that keeps people at a respectful distance. Elizabeth Parker lives in a modest apartment across town. At 47, she's made a quiet fortune in technology investments. She's brilliant with numbers, careful with money, and invisible to the people who once knew her name. She never married, never had children, never sang again after that night in 1987. Every morning, Elizabeth reads the financial news while drinking coffee from a plain white mug. She owns pieces of companies most people have never heard of. Her investment firm is small but successful. She makes millions by staying in the shadows, by being the person no one remembers. But she remembers everything. She remembers the dress her foster mother bought her for the audition. Blue cotton with tiny flowers, the nicest thing she'd ever owned. She remembers practicing her song for weeks, believing that talent and hope were enough. She remembers walking onto that stage with her heart pounding, thinking this was her chance to make something of herself. She remembers Charles Hamilton's voice cutting through her performance like a knife. "Stop, stop, stop," he'd said, waving his hand dismissively. "What are we listening to here? This isn't a talent show, it's a charity case." The audience laughed. They always laughed when Charles was cruel. "Look at her," he'd continued, gesturing at her second-hand shoes, her nervous smile. "And that voice? My neighbor's cat sounds better." Elizabeth had stood frozen on that stage, 12 years old and dying inside, while hundreds of people laughed at her pain. "Honey," Charles had said with fake sympathy, "singing isn't for everyone. Maybe try something more realistic." She'd run off stage crying, and the camera had followed her. Her humiliation was broadcast to 3 million viewers, replayed on highlight shows, turned into a viral moment before viral moments had a name. The foster system moved her to a different town after that. Kids at her new school had seen the show. They called her Charity Case,
and sang off-key whenever she walked by. She learned to keep her head down, to stay quiet, to never draw attention to herself again. But she also learned something else, that power wasn't about talent or hope or dreams. Power was about money, and money was about being smarter than everyone else. Elizabeth put herself through college working 3 jobs. She studied finance, economics, investment theory. She learned to read market trends like other people read novels. She started small, investing the money she made tutoring other students. By 30, she was managing millions. By 40, she owned pieces of companies across the country. She was patient, strategic, invisible, and she never forgot the man who broke her heart on live television. For years, Elizabeth has been quietly buying stock in Hamilton Media Group. Small purchases spread across different investment firms so no one would notice the pattern. She's been patient, methodical, waiting for the right moment. That moment came last month when Charles needed cash to settle a lawsuit. He sold 20% of his company to a consortium of investors, not knowing that Elizabeth controlled that consortium. Combined with her other holdings, she now owns 51% of Hamilton Media Group. She owns Charles Hamilton's empire. This morning, Elizabeth puts on her best business suit and drives to the network offices. She's been in this building before, 35 years ago, when she was a scared little girl with a song and a dream. The elevator carries her to the executive floor, the same floor where Charles Hamilton once told her that singing wasn't for everyone. She walks past the portrait gallery of former hosts and winners. Her 12-year-old face isn't there, of course. Failures don't get their pictures on the wall. But today, she's not here as a failure. Today, she's here as the boss. Elizabeth stops outside Charles's office and takes a deep breath. Through the glass, she can see him reading the acquisition papers, his face pale with shock. She knocks on the door and waits for permission to enter. After 35 years, she's finally ready to finish the conversation they started on that stage.
Charles looks up when Elizabeth enters his office, and for a moment, neither of them speaks. He's older now, gray-haired and soft around the edges, but his eyes are the same, sharp, calculating, used to being in control. Elizabeth has changed more dramatically. The frightened child is gone, replaced by a woman who moves with quiet confidence. She's wearing an expensive suit, carrying herself like someone who belongs in boardrooms and corner offices. But Charles sees traces of the girl she used to be, the same serious expression, the same way of tilting her head when she's thinking. "Elizabeth," he says carefully, "it's been a long time. 35 years. She replies. Her voice is steady, professional, nothing like the trembling 12-year-old who once stood on his stage. Charles gestures to the chair across from his desk. "Please, sit. I suppose we have some business to discuss." Elizabeth remains standing. "Yes, we do. I own 51% of Hamilton Media Group as of this morning. I'm here to discuss the transition." The words hang in the air between them. Charles had hoped this was some kind of mistake, that the paperwork was wrong. But looking at Elizabeth's calm expression, he knows it's real. "You planned this," he says. "It's not a question. I planned this," she confirms, "for a very long time." Charles leans back in his chair, trying to regain his composure. "What do you want? Money? A settlement? Your own show?" "I want to understand something," Elizabeth says,
Do you remember what you said to me that night? Charles' face flushes slightly. Elizabeth, that was decades ago. We were different people then. The show was different. Television was different. Do you remember? He's quiet for a long moment. I remember a young girl who was nervous. I remember trying to give the audience what they wanted. I was doing my job, Charles says defensively. It was entertainment. People tuned in for the drama. 3 million people watched you destroy a 12-year-old on live television. Do you know what happened to me after that? Charles shifts uncomfortably. I'm sure it was difficult, but I was in foster care. Elizabeth interrupts. I had no family, no money, no support system. That show was my one chance to maybe change my life, to maybe find something I was good at. Her voice remains steady, but Charles can hear the emotion underneath. After your show aired, kids at school called me a charity case. Teachers looked at me with pity. I stopped singing completely. I stopped believing I was worth anything. Elizabeth, I'm sorry. I truly am. But that was a long time ago. You've obviously done well for yourself. I did well, she agrees. But not because of who I was, because of who I had to become. I learned that the only thing that matters in this world is power, and the only way to get power is to be willing to use it against people who can't fight back. Charles feels a chill run down his spine. What are you saying? I'm saying I learned from you, Charles. I learned that success means being willing to hurt people for your own benefit. I learned that the strong survive by stepping on the weak. She reaches into her briefcase and pulls out a folder. I've been buying stock in your company for 15 years. Small amounts spread across different firms. I've been patient. I've been strategic. I've been invisible. Charles stares at the folder, understanding dawning on his face. You targeted me specifically, he says. I targeted you specifically. I could have invested in 100 different companies. I could have built my own media empire. But I wanted this one. I wanted your company. I wanted your legacy. Why? Elizabeth's expression doesn't change. Because you taught me that power isn't about talent or dreams or hope. It's about being willing to destroy someone else to get what you want. She reaches into her briefcase and pulls out a folder. These are the termination papers for your show. America's Next Star is canceled, effective immediately. Charles opens the folder with shaking hands. The papers are official, signed, final. His show, the program he's hosted for 30 years, is over. You can't do this, he says desperately. The show is profitable. The ratings are strong. The network needs new leadership and new programming. I'm not interested in building my empire on other people's humiliation. She turns to leave, then pauses at the door without turning around. There's one more thing, she says. I've arranged for all the old episodes to be pulled from syndication. No more reruns, No more highlight reels, no more viral moments of you destroying children's dreams. Charles feels his world crumbling. Elizabeth, please, we can work something out. I can apologize publicly. I can make amends. You can't undo what you did, she says quietly, but you can learn what it feels like to lose everything you've built. She closes the door behind her, leaving Charles alone with his fears and the ruins of his empire.
Charles sits in his office for a long time after Elizabeth leaves, staring at the termination papers. 30 years of work, gone with a signature. His legacy, erased by a woman he'd forgotten existed until this morning. He tries to work, to focus on other projects, but his hands won't stop shaking. Every few minutes, he looks at his phone, waiting for his lawyer to call with good news. Maybe there's a loophole. Maybe the contracts aren't valid. Maybe this is all some elaborate mistake. But deep down, Charles knows Elizabeth Parker doesn't make mistakes. By afternoon, word has spread through the building. Production assistants whisper in hallways. Executives have emergency meetings behind closed doors. The show that's been the network's flagship for 3 decades is canceled, and nobody knows why. Charles calls his producer, his lawyer, his accountant. The conversations are variations of the same theme. Elizabeth Parker owns the company now, and she can do whatever she wants. But the show makes money, his producer argues. Why would she kill her own profits? Charles doesn't have an answer. He can't explain that this isn't about money. It's about something deeper. Something that happened on a stage 35 years ago, when he was young and cruel and thought other people's pain was entertainment. By afternoon, Charles's secretary knocks on his door. "Mr. Hamilton, there's someone here to see you." Charles expects another lawyer, another accountant, another person trying to fix the unfixable. Instead, his nephew David walks in. David is 28, fresh out of business school, and Charles's only remaining family. "Uncle Charles," David says, settling into the chair across from his desk. "I heard about the show. I'm sorry." Charles tries to smile, but it feels forced. "These things happen. I'll figure something out." "Will you?" David asks gently. "Because from what I'm hearing, Elizabeth Parker owns everything now. The show, the network, even this building." Charles's facade crumbles. "I don't know what to do, David. I've never been in a position like this." "What did you do to her?" "Because this feels personal." Charles closes his eyes and tells the story. The scared 12-year-old girl, the cruel jokes, the moment of cheap entertainment that destroyed a child's dream. David listens without interrupting, his expression growing more troubled with each detail. "Jesus, Uncle Charles, she was just a kid. I know that now. Did you know it then?" Charles is quiet for a long moment. "I think I did. But I didn't care. The audience loved it when I was mean. It was good for ratings. And now she owns your company. Now she owns everything." David shakes his head. "You always told me that success was about being tough, about not letting emotions cloud your judgment. But this isn't about business, is it? This is about what you did to her." Charles looks out his office window at the city below. Somewhere out there, Elizabeth Parker is probably planning the next phase of her takeover. Maybe she's already found his replacement. Maybe she's already moved on to her next target. "I ruined her life," Charles says quietly. "I took a little girl's dream and turned it into a joke for 3 million people." "You were doing your job," David offers weakly. "No," Charles says firmly. "I was being cruel because I could be. Because it was easy. Because she couldn't fight back." David shifts uncomfortably. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. What can I do? She has all the power now." You could apologize. Charles laughs bitterly. I tried that. She's not interested in apologies. She's interested in justice. Then maybe you should give her what she wants. What she wants is for me to lose everything I've built. She wants me to know what it feels like to be powerless. David studies his uncle's face. And? How does it feel? Charles is quiet for a long moment. Terrible, he admits. It feels terrible. That evening, Charles goes home to his empty mansion and sits in his study, surrounded by awards and photos from his career. Emmys, industry recognition, pictures with celebrities and politicians, evidence of a life well lived, or so he'd thought. But looking at these trophies now, Charles can only think about the people he hurt along the way, the contestants he humiliated, the dreams he crushed, the children he made cry for the entertainment of strangers. He thinks about Elizabeth Parker, 12 years old and trembling on his stage. He thinks about the foster system, about kids calling her names, about a talented girl who stopped singing because he told her she wasn't good enough. He thinks about the woman she became, successful, powerful, invisible. A woman who spent 15 years planning her revenge, who built a fortune in silence while he forgot she existed. Charles pours himself a drink and sits in his leather chair, staring at the wall where his awards hang. Tomorrow, he'll probably have to start packing these up. Tomorrow, he'll have to figure out what comes next. But this night, for the first time in 35 years, Charles Hamilton is forced to confront the truth about who he really is, and he doesn't like what he sees. Charles doesn't sleep that night. He walks through his mansion, looking at the expensive furniture and artwork, trying to remember why any of it mattered. By morning, he's made a decision that surprises even him. He calls his lawyer and tells him to liquidate everything. The house, the cars, the investments. All of it. Charles, you're not thinking clearly, his lawyer argues. This is a temporary setback. You can rebuild. I don't want to rebuild, Charles says. I want to make things right. With who? Elizabeth Parker? She's not going to forgive you because you sell your house. Maybe not, but I have to try. Charles spends the next week settling his affairs. He sells his mansion and moves into a small apartment downtown. He liquidates his stock portfolio, his art collection, his luxury car. People think he's having a breakdown, but Charles has never felt more clear-headed. He's getting ready to lose everything anyway. Elizabeth Parker will see to that. At least this way, he can choose what to do with the money before it's gone. Charles researches foster care systems, children's charities, arts programs for underprivileged kids. He writes checks to organizations that help young people who've been forgotten by society. The same kind of kids he used to mock on television. But the biggest check goes to the Elizabeth Parker Foundation, a charity he discovers she started 5 years ago. It provides music education and performance opportunities for children in foster care. Charles writes a letter to go with the donation. Elizabeth, I know money can't undo what I did to you. I know an apology can't give you back your childhood or your dreams, but I want you to know that I remember everything now. I remember your blue dress, your song, the way you ran off stage crying. I remember, and I'm sorry. I'm donating my entire estate to children's charities, with the largest portion going to your foundation. It's not enough, but it's everything I have. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just need you to know that what I did was wrong, and I've spent every day since our meeting thinking about it. You were right. I did teach you that power means being willing to hurt people who can't fight back. I'm sorry I was your teacher. Charles hand-delivers the letter to Elizabeth's office, leaving it with her assistant. He doesn't ask for a meeting. He doesn't wait for a response. He just leaves the envelope and walks away. A week later, Charles gets a call from his nephew, David. Uncle Charles,
"Are you okay? I heard you sold everything." "I'm fine," Charles says. "From his small apartment, I'm actually better than I've been in years." "But you have nothing left." "I have enough. I have a small apartment, a used car, and a job interview tomorrow." "A job interview for what?" "Teaching. There's a community college that needs someone to teach basic television production. The pay isn't much, but the students are mostly older adults going back to school, people who've been given second chances." David is quiet for a moment. "Are you trying to punish yourself?" "Maybe," answers Charles. "Or maybe I'm trying to figure out who I am when I'm not rich and powerful." "And what about Elizabeth Parker? Have you heard from her?" Charles looks at the letter he wrote, still sitting on his kitchen table. "No, and I don't expect to." But that afternoon, Charles's phone rings. The caller ID shows a number he doesn't recognize. "Hello? This is Elizabeth Parker." Her voice is the same as it was in his office. Calm, professional, controlled. Charles's heart starts racing. "Elizabeth, I didn't expect to hear from you. I got your letter and your donation. I meant what I said. I'm sorry. I know it's not enough, but I'm sorry." There's a long pause. "Why did you give away everything?" Charles thinks about the question. "Because I realized that everything I built was built on other people's pain. I don't want to profit from that anymore. And now? Now I'm going to try to be useful. I'm going to teach kids who want to learn about television production. Kids who might have dreams worth protecting." Another pause. "The job at the community college, that's real. It's real. I start Monday." Elizabeth is quiet for so long that Charles wonders if she's hung up. Finally, she speaks again. "I've been angry for 35 years, Charles. Angry at you, angry at the world, angry at myself for letting one moment define my life. You had every right to be angry, maybe, but I'm tired of being angry. I'm tired of letting what you did control who I am." I don't know what to say. I wait, listening to her breathe on the other end of the line. "I'm not ready to forgive you. I may never be ready, but I'm willing to see what kind of person you become when you're not trying to be powerful."
6 months later, Charles Hamilton stands in front of a classroom full of adult students, teaching them about camera angles and lighting techniques. His students are waitresses going back to school, mechanics learning new skills, single mothers chasing dreams they put on hold. They don't know who he used to be. To them, he's just Mr. Hamilton, the teacher who stays late to help with projects and brings coffee for the early morning classes. Charles loves this work in a way he never loved hosting his show. These students aren't here to be entertained. They're here to learn, to grow, to become better versions of themselves. They remind him why he fell in love with television in the first place. His small apartment is nothing like his old mansion, but it feels more like home. He has a few books, a comfortable chair, and photos of his students on their graduation day. Simple things, meaningful things. On a Tuesday evening, Charles is grading papers when his phone rings. Elizabeth Parker's name appears on the screen. They've talked 3 times since her first call. Brief conversations, mostly about practical matters, the foundation she runs, the work he's doing at the college. Careful conversations between 2 people learning to trust each other. "Hello, Elizabeth." "Hi, Charles. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Just grading papers. How are you?" "I'm fine. Actually, I wanted to tell you something. I was at the college today, meeting with the dean about a potential partnership between our foundation and the film program." Charles' heart skips a beat. "Oh? I saw your classroom. I watched you teach for a few minutes." Charles doesn't know what to say. He feels exposed, vulnerable, like she's seeing parts of him he's not ready to share. "Your students love you," Elizabeth continues. "I could see it in their faces, the way they listen to you, ask questions, trust you with their dreams." "They're good kids," Charles says.
They deserve someone who believes in them. Like you never believed in me. The words hang between them. Charles has been waiting for this moment, dreading it, hoping for it. Like I never believed in you. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I will be sorry for the rest of my life. I know, she says quietly. I can see it in you now. The regret, the genuine remorse. Charles waits, not sure where this conversation is going. I have something to tell you, Elizabeth says. I've been thinking about selling the network. Charles is stunned. Selling it? But you just bought it. I bought it for the wrong reasons. I bought it to hurt you, to prove a point, to get revenge for something that happened when I was 12 years old. And now? Now I think I want to do something more constructive with my life. I want to focus on the foundation, on helping kids who've been forgotten by society. That sounds like important work. It is, and I think you understand that now. They're quiet for a moment. Two people who've spent decades defining themselves by one terrible moment, trying to figure out who they are beyond that pain. Charles, Elizabeth says finally, I want to ask you something. Anything. If you could go back to that night in 1987, what would you do differently? Charles closes his eyes, remembering the frightened 12-year-old girl in the blue dress, the song that meant everything to her, the moment when he chose cruelty over kindness. I would have listened to your whole song. I would have told you that you were brave for getting up on that stage. I would have told you that your voice was beautiful, that your dreams mattered, that you mattered. And then I would have helped you find a way to make those dreams come true. Elizabeth is quiet for a long time. When she speaks again, her voice is softer than Charles has ever heard it. I think that's enough. I think that's finally enough. She hangs up, leaving Charles alone in his small apartment with his grading papers and his simple life. He doesn't know if he'll ever see Elizabeth Parker again. He doesn't know if they'll ever be friends, or if forgiveness is possible after so much pain. But for the first time in 35 years, Charles Hamilton feels like he might be worth forgiving. And in a life built on other people's humiliation, that feels like redemption.